Nurturing students of color in independent schools. Okay, now, I know that this is, by now, a tired complaint, but I cannot help but remain bewildered at the commonplace nature of the phrase students of color or people of color these days. When I was growing up, you would only hear a reference to colored people or the coloreds by racist villains in movies, TV shows, or from your crotchety old grandmother. I grew up in the hopeful aftermath of the Civil Rights era and Dr. King, where the idea of categorizing or discriminating people on the basis of race was no longer a welcome notion. And yet, here we are, in the current year, and delineating people on race is now a correct and proper way to assess the world around us. Well, maybe for some, but not for me. But, that being said, let's move on.
Independent schools are uniquely positioned to really nourish and nurture children of color if they try to, if they care to.
Because some kids need more nurturing than others, depending on their melanin count? Or children of color have no ability to thrive in public schools? I am dying to know what our speaker is talking about.
It's all about making sure that every single kid is respected and cherished.
Every single kid, full stop. Or are kids of certain races not worthy of such attentions?
That people aren't acting with implicit biases against certain kids on the basis of some aspect of their identity, whether it's race or otherwise.
Whoa, lady. Wait a second. You're dismissing implicit bias on the basis of race or otherwise, and yet you began this piece by singling out students of color as being in a special category of nurturing at independent schools. We're only 30 seconds into this video, and already you've stopped making sense.
It requires hiring people who are going to mentor and teach kids who themselves are from underrepresented communities, so kids have people they can look to and turn to when they need to cope with the inevitable slings and arrows that come the way of a person in a marginalized community.
So, our speaker is advising schools to hire teachers on the basis of their race. Got it.
Research shows that if a young person feels that one staff member or faculty member gives a darn about them, they will persist, succeed, and thrive. This sense of belonging is fostered in part through having one person who's of the place see you, take an interest in you, get you, care about you, take an interest in your lived experience. So that's what we need to do in our communities, is commit that every child here will feel an authentic sense of belonging here, because we are going out of our way to be sure we are embracing all kids so that all kids will feel that sense of, I matter here.
And the only way that you can try to make a kid feel like they matter, like they belong, is to ensure that their instructors have the same skin color that they do. That only like should be matched with like. So, a black teacher taking an interest in the success of an Asian student, therefore, would be undesirable. Got it.
Microaggressions that kids of color can face in school today run the gamut from the presumption that the child is only there on the basis of their race.
Well, now, that presumption would be incorrect. After all, it would be the teachers that we can presume are only there on the basis of their race.
It requires hiring people who are going to mentor and teach kids who themselves are from underrepresented communities, so kids have people they can look to and turn to when they need to cope with the inevitable slings and arrows that come the way of a person in a marginalized community. So those comments that are made by peers, when it comes time to apply to college, the comments that, oh, you only got into that school because of your race, all of these things are incredibly hurtful.
Hurtful they may be, but setting aside the inconvenient truths behind affirmative action programs in colleges and universities, by advocating for the hiring of teachers on the basis of there being a certain race, you are helping to support a belief that race is a deciding factor in hiring and college admissions. Why are you unable to see that?
There are assumptions and presumptions that some faculty will make about a child's ability in the classroom, particularly STEM. The presumption that people of a certain race or ethnicity are going to be bad at the subject or are going to be good at the subject solely on the basis of race.
You have singled out children of color as needing or being able to receive some sort of special nurturing at independent schools. You are the one promoting a difference in learning ability on the basis of race. You are.
So these are all things that are, some examples of many, many things that are kind of baked into the American psyche.
The American psyche or your psyche?
This is what growing up in America does to all of us. It teaches us to value people more if they're lighter skinned and value people less if they're darker skinned, and none of us grows up immune from that.
None of us grow up immune to racism. Sorry, what were you saying again about making assumptions and presumptions about other people?
So we all have to do the work to examine the biases that are within us and then commit when we feel a bias coming up, whether it's teacher to student, student to student, teacher to teacher.
Racist to an innocent child?
When we feel that stereotype coming up, we have to do the work in ourselves to notice, oh, I'm stereotyping this person. I'm basically allowing the stereotype of their group to be what I see instead of seeing the person. If we can notice it, then we will help dissipate it in our mind, if only for that moment, but the more we practice it, the more it starts to really go away.
A note to our speaker. Please listen back to everything that you have said, both proclaimed and implied, before this point in the video, and then please do tell me, are you practicing what you preach?
As educators, we have to remember that we're our kids' biggest role models. Outside of parents, we're probably the next biggest role models. Whether we're the best role models is all about how we show up in the lives of kids. So we have to not only talk the talk, but walk the walk. We have to demonstrate with our language, our choices, our behaviors, that we will show up and be allies.
So talking the talk and walking the walk involves categorizing students on the basis of race, matching students to their teachers on the basis of race, and having an innate belief that everyone is inherently racist. Got it.
We have to role model for kids how you behave when difficult things happen, that we don't remain silent, that we don't sweep it under the rug, that we don't say, oh, get over it, but that we as adults stand up and say, you know what, this was not right. I'm going to say so, and if I stand up, maybe someone else will stand up, and pretty soon half the room is standing up, and then the other half of the room knows they have a lot of work to do.
Why am I forced to assume that our speaker's other half of the room is comprised entirely by white people? Am I making assumptions? Or am I listening to what she is saying?
It's on us to really be brave on behalf of the kids we're trying to serve. They're looking to us to show the moral courage to treat people the right way and to stand up against mistreatment.
Yes, indeed, they are looking to you to understand the moral courage it takes to believe that everyone is racist and that there should be no race mixing in education. They need you to show them that the right way to treat people is to assess their value on the basis of their skin color. That, regardless of how good or experienced a teacher they might be, that what really matters is whether or not they have the right look in relation to their students. Yes, these are vital lessons for children to learn and absorb, because when it comes to indoctrinating people into the virtuous neo-segregation, you have to get them while they're young. But hey, what do I know? I mean, I am white. As always, thank you for watching.